Um, it's for school.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a trading card game in which you try to reduce your opponent's life points to 0.
Wrong, my children. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is the game of the devil's spawn.
Who was that? Bro, are you actually trying to tell me Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a game for the devil?
Resist the devil and he will flee from you.
Yeah, because apparently Konami is not trying to sell over expensive cards to little children that try to become their favorite anime character. Instead, it was created to lure children away from God and introduce them to sin. At least that's what some people think. I mean, sure, you summon strong fiends and cast powerful spells, so it has to be evil. Right? So to start from the beginning, everything started with me being bored one day and just googling some random stuff, and I came across a Reddit article about someone talking about their experience with their family members believing Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a satanic game. Back then I looked it up, I wrote a short about it, but that was it until it came up recently in a conversation that I had with a friend, and I decided to look into it a little bit more, and what I found, let's just say you don't want to miss any of that. Something you probably also don't want to miss is some more content from the pod. If that's true, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We are currently trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and if you could help with that, that would be amazing. So starting off my journey, I went back to the original Reddit article that I have read there, and I was looking for some more clues. So here is the original Reddit article called About Yu-Gi-Oh! Versus Religion. Hello, just for context, my family is Christian Catholic and I am an avid weeb and duelist. So an incident happened yesterday. So I video called my cousin who happened to be playing Yu-Gi-Oh! At the time, so I spectated his match. He used a DDD deck, and as you'll know, DDD is filled with Dark Fiend type monsters. My other cousin didn't help with the fact that he was using a Dark World deck. Anyway, when my cousin summoned Gruffa, the Dark World boss monster, my aunt walked in, and to the horror she saw that the card he used had connections to demons and other lords. She went on a huge ass rant how God is the only Lord and Savior. She also went on a rant on how we're supposed to respect another person and that fighting, even using cards, is not the way. She also noticed that I was on a video call with them, then blamed me for introducing Yu-Gi-Oh! To them, a wicked game for the Antichrist. Later that day, my aunt sold $1,000 worth of not only his Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards, but his Vanguard cards and Buddy Fight cards as well, because they were wicked. Any thoughts on what to do with this? Because I fear for my life if I reintroduce the game to them when I buy them a deck to their birthdays. And not complaining about religion here, because we will definitely do that later on, but this is just sad. Imagine you're just a kid and you want to play a card game, and then your mother tells you that it is wicked and it tries to lead you away from God, when the only God that you know is Obelisk the Tormentor. I mean, as the post said, his older cousin played Yu-Gi-Oh! And if you've ever had older siblings or older cousins, you know that you're just doing everything they do and you like everything they like. I myself just started to play Pokemon back in the day because my favorite cousin was playing it, so I loved it too. Let me give you another example. This is as old as 8 years ago. I can't take it. Literally, I'm going on the brink of insanity. I've been preached for hours about the satanic game Yu-Gi-Oh! And how it's of the occult. My mother cried, she cried. I'm just so sick of this. It doesn't even make sense. They tried using this to justify their thoughts. And I can't deal with this anymore. And this is interesting because here we actually have a source for the panic. Sadly, going to the site, I realized it is no longer available anymore. So I was once again back to step one. So I had to start over again, and what I found next, well, let's say I was in for a wild ride. From walking through defunct psychotherapeutic methods to hacking into Christian websites, this is the story of Yu-Gi-Oh! And Satanism. Starting off at the beginning, I think I need to explain where all of this started. So let's take a trip back in time. We are in the 1980s. People are wearing stuff like this. Michael Jackson still looks like a normal human being, and racism was even more popular than now. Good times. Everything started with a book released in 1980 called Michelle Remembers. The book was written by Canadian psychiatrist Lawrence Paister and his patient and later wife Michelle Smith. And that should already tell you everything that you need to know. In the book that is today discredited, Paister used a technique called recovered memory therapy. A therapy that tries to recover lost memories by, and be prepared because I copy-pasted this from Wikipedia. Psychotherapy that critiques say utilizes one or more unproven therapeutic techniques such as psychoanalysis, hypnosis, journaling, past life regression, guided imagery, and the use of sodium amylate interviews. I don't understand any of this, but luckily enough I have a friend that is studying psychology, so I asked him for some help, and this is what he said. He told me that the technique is called retroactive trauma. So basically it's about you have some bad memories from your childhood and you are convinced that it is trauma instead of it just being bad memories, even going as far as to introduce new memories into your patient. Obviously, that's why it is a very unpopular technique today. So Paister started therapy on Smith because she had a miscarriage until one day she told him that she should remember something but she can't anymore. Things got way weirder when Smith suddenly started to scream for like 25 minutes straight and then talk with the voice of a 5-year-old. Some 600 hours of hypnosis later, and Paister found out that Smith probably has trauma from when she were 5 years old because of satanic rituals. The book became a bestseller and spread around the world, and reports started spreading about physical and sexual due to occult rituals. Allegations of sexual ritual abuse everywhere in the USA. Later, a lot of those cases would be associated with multiple personality disorder, and I have to say it never stops shocking me that back in the day, instead of treating mentally ill people, you just said they were possessed by the devil. Like I said, good times. The whole thing was reported and spread over years, furthering people's belief of those things they don't understand. Slowly working my way back to the topic, one of the concerns the public had was people being introduced or lured into those cults without them even knowing. Maybe even your neighbors were already lured into those cults. Most popular was the fear that your children would be used and lured into those rituals or those cults. And here's the first victim, so the first game that took heavy allegations, and it is Dungeons and Dragons, which, like, it's no surprise you have themes like demons, spells, spellcasters, and all of that. So if you ever watched Stranger Things, you have a rough idea of what I am talking about here. The instances of that are actually pretty tough to read through, and I could go on and on into all of that, but I think that would be too much for this video right here. But here is a Washington Post article from 1983. If you want to read it, just pause the video and read through it, but I am not going to do that in this video. I'm just going to give you the TLDR. So the mother sued the school as well as the creators of D&D and started this big media campaign against it. In the end, all of those claims were dismissed. So with this brief explanation where all of this comes from, we can finally talk about how this relates to Yu-Gi-Oh! So just like D&D, all major games like Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, all of them had satanic accusations in the past. So when in 2004 the first Yu-Gi-Oh movie, The Pyramid of Light, released, the Christian news website Christianity Today was warning parents about the movie and the impact that it could have on their children. Let's just read through some of those.
Lewis and Tolkien felt no conflict in creating stories full of fairies, elves, and witches because their stories and their readers were grounded in a generally Christian-based culture. The Bible was read in schools, after all, as a literary text. Even secular authors of their age could discuss biblical concepts with a degree of fluency. That's not the case today, where few kids know more than the sanitized stories from the Old Testament and the usual New Testament verses on salvation and God's love. When impressionable kids watch a movie like Yu-Gi-Oh!, they may find it more compelling than most Sunday school lessons. It's fair to say that most kids, especially boys, will want to see Yu-Gi-Oh! Many will have a great time and jabber on and on about it with their friends. After the advanced screening, my wife and I interviewed kids and found that most of them were wildly enthusiastic. Some even brought their playing cards to the movie. Like Harry Potter, Shrek, and Spider-Man, it will become part of the currency of grade and middle school conversation. When a movie like Yu-Gi-Oh! Becomes, like Harry Potter, a key cultural reference point, it's a good idea to see it with your kids and talk about it if you choose to see it at all. If you do choose to see it, do a lot of listening and ask your children focused questions.
And obviously, because they are good Christian people, they have given us actually questions to ask to our children.
Do you believe such powers as Yugi or his cards have are real?
No, not the cards or Yugi have those powers. Those are the Millennium items. I have told you that before that.
Do you think Yugi believes in a Christian god, or does he believe in many gods?
That you realize that like 80% of Japanese people are either into Shinto or Buddhism religion. There are not even like 10% of the population in Japan that is into Christianity. So no, Yugi probably does not believe into the Christian god, you stupid cuckoo.
How would a not popular small kid be accepted without Yugi's powers?
Do you think I would be into Yu-Gi-Oh! If I had an answer to this fucking question?
Continuing with the article now, next off we actually have a Christian movie review, and this is spicy. In what some critics are describing as a future-length marketing ploy, the popular Japanese comic book, cartoon and playing card game Yu-Gi-Oh! Hit screens last week. And what is crazy right here is that this devil spawn of a game not only brought the movie into the cinema, no, they brought the show, the cartoon and even the whole card game into the cinema. I mean, how sick must it have been, like you're a little child sitting in a cinema watching your new favorite movie when suddenly the whole card game enters the room. I mean, imagine watching Yu-Gi-Oh! In the cinema and in front of the screen Jesse Cotton FTK's your 12-year-old brother. Yu-Gi-Oh! The movie is about a magical card game that transforms the players into supernatural heroes in a clash of good versus evil. Man, that sounds like a sick card game. In reality, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is more like a game that transforms guys into broke guys in a clash of Frost or Rent. And you have to think about the game already censoring a lot of the religious stuff for the TCG. And I don't have proof, but in my opinion, all of that what happened to similar card games, I think that is a reason why they do it. So one very good example of this is Dark Ruler Hades, a card that is included in a bunch of other card works, and here in the TCG it has its horns removed. Obviously, as the name already suggests, Hades is in ancient Greek mythology the ruler of the underworld, so he is the closest the Greeks had to the devil, so horns on this guy would make Granny absolutely go nuts. Even worse than that, let's look at Dark Magician Girl, and if we compare those two cards, we can see right there here. No, not the boba. Well, the TCG version has a little moon, on the original version is rocking a pentagram, a very common symbol of the devil. So in this part of the video, we will finally be talking about the impact that the card game had on parents specifically. So about a year ago, this article from Gamers Brave was published talking about one of the victims of this panic. In it, this guy explains how his parents have forbidden Yu-Gi-Oh! In their house because God wouldn't want them to worship those demonic-looking beings, spells and rituals. And okay, I get it. There are still people out there that have not evolved past the 14th century when we used to burn witches at the stake. Maybe as a parent you are afraid of your child's immortal soul falling in the hands of the wicked himself. Damn, I've been reading way too much Christian stuff. Okay, so trying to find an explanation, and honestly here is my very hot take. Not really. So it doesn't matter whatever thing your child likes, as long as you as a parent do not understand it, that is already scary for you. And a lot of religious people, if they don't know what to do anymore, they will go and seek a higher power for help. And since God usually does not respond because of his mysterious ways or because he is way too busy dealing about the fact that little Timmy likes his witchcrafter Jenny so much, he even takes it to his bed. Yeah, definitely because it's a witch and you're into witchcraft. Isn't that right, little Timmy? And obviously so you would go and see your priest and talk to him about this topic. And I don't know if it would be a common response to deem Yu-Gi-Oh! Demonic, because obviously I'm not a priest. But luckily enough, I have a friend that is a priest, so I texted him about it. So to conclude this video, I wanted to talk about some more personal stuff. Back when I just started school, my parents have just moved to another place and I didn't know anyone in primary school. And I had a very rough time in the first couple of days to fit in those pre-existing friend groups. But what I noticed is that all of them were playing like this strange card game that I have never seen before. So my mom, even though she was against it, went out and bought a structure deck from me, and at the very next day I was sitting there with this pre-existing friend groups and I was playing like we had been friends for forever. And actually now, like 20 years later, one of those guys is still one of my closest friends. And I think that's the core of why a lot of us love this game. It's always been because of the friends that we make along the way. People I would have never had the chance to meet in other ways that today I wouldn't want to ever lose again. And going to events, visiting cities I would have probably never went to see otherwise, having the time of my life. That's why I and so many more love this game so much, and not because we are all devil worshipping Satanists.